decided we are going to, instead of me doing 50,000 videos like I did last year for free agency that I think kind of got the account shadow banned, we are actually going to try something a little different. We're going to go live. Probably not every day. I just did today because there's just so much stuff that happened. And a couple of blockbuster things that I want to talk about. And thank you for everybody joining. So, we're going to cover free agency. I had to write it all down because my stupid phone won't let me switch back and forth while I'm live streaming. But then if Woj tweets anything more, I've got the notifications on, so I'll keep it up to date. But quick little housekeeping thing. The 2K video that was originally coming out like an hour ago is going to come out after this live stream because it's stuff we already knew about. So there's no sense in me rushing that video if it's stuff I already told you guys about previous videos. But let's go ahead and start with what the fuck happened for the first trade, right? So, I'm sitting there at work, waiting on, got the notification that Shams was getting ready to do the live show, Woj was getting ready to do his live show, yada, yada, yada. Then the first tweet that comes out for trade deadline, or not for trade deadline, free agency, is Kevin Durant has requested a trade. It makes sense, right? Because for the 3 years he's been there, it's been injury and him carrying on his back, wanting trades, and Kyrie with the vaccine, right? Kyrie's his own thing. It's whatever. I think Durant was just sick and tired of having to stick up for Kyrie at every press conference he went to. This team has no sense. There's nowhere for this team to pivot and get better. They weren't going to be in the PJ Tucker sweepstakes. There was just nowhere for them to get better, right? You don't know what Ben Simmons is because Ben Simmons hasn't played in a year, right? You don't know what Ben Simmons looks like. He just had surgery this offseason. Who knows? Kevin Durant has requested a trade. Now, there has not been any sort of official, here's tier 1, tier 2. Obviously, from the rumors I've heard, every team has offered, or at least most teams have offered something that they've been calling about Durant for a while, ever since the Kyrie news started. I'm assuming mainly because of they were trying to do it around draft so they could add those draft picks in there. But a couple of teams listed, I noticed by, I think it was Woj with like his second or third tweet about it, was that Phoenix was interested, Miami was interested. The thing with Miami that I don't think a lot of people understand, so I'm going to explain it here, is Miami can't trade them Bam. Because how it works, I don't know if you guys listen to Bobby Marks on the various podcasts. He's been on the last couple of days, but he's the one that's been explaining it the best that he can. He's the cap guy for ESPN. I follow him a lot. I follow a lot of the guys that do the different cap stuff just so I can try and understand this stuff better. Because of when a player signs, so a player has the rookie contract, then they go to that second contract based off their rookie contract. If they sign the max on that second contract, you can only have one of those, or you can only have one guy that you've traded for based on that on the roster, right? Ben Simmons was that. So because Ben Simmons is on his max off of his rookie contract, Bam is in the same boat right now. Bam is on a max off of his rookie contract. You cannot have both of them on your roster. So that means if you're trading for Bam, he has to go to a third team, is how it works. So Miami, I don't know exactly what their trade package would be. I heard rumors of trying to do Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry's not in a Kevin Durant trade. Doesn't make sense. Brooklyn's going to want somebody they can build around. They don't have their own picks, so they're going to want to be competitive. That's why, like, my out of the blue trade was a Memphis trade. I've been doing mock trades for Memphis for a while now. Just because I like their young roster. I think they've got guys they can put in there. As a Bulls person, I have to put the Bulls. I don't think Levine would agree to a sign and trade, so I'm assuming it's not him. I'm assuming the pack would be around DeMar DeRozan. That still allows you to be competitive. That still allows you to compete while he's in his prime for these next 2 years. You pair him with Ben Simmons, you get at least a little something, maybe at least compete for a play-in seed, so you're not at the bottom and Houston just accumulating like top 5 picks, right? So that was interesting. But then Shams, like 15, 20 minutes after tweeting that, tweeted something interesting. Sorry, throat's a little dry. Brooklyn decided to trade for Royce O'Neal, giving up a first. They're giving up a next year first. As Shams worded it, it's whichever is worse out of the Houston and Philly picks. So what I'm assuming that means is it's whichever pick is farther back in the draft, right? Obviously, you're not giving up the Houston pick because Houston's like top 5 or whatever, but I think that's a pick swap with Brooklyn anyway, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, so they traded for that. They made a couple other signings and stuff that just didn't make sense. It still has them in like that win now compete mode. But I'm just going to go through the list of ones I have. If you guys see anything like super crazy from Woj, make sure to put it in the chat so I can actually go check it. Because I kind of just have the little thing that shows I have a Twitter notification. I don't have what he's saying like on the top of the thing. But after the Royce O'Neal trade to Brooklyn, I like him, but not what they're doing right now, right? I think next to Ben Simmons, he makes a lot of sense. You put a wing defender out there with Ben in your closing lineups, because in theory it would have been like KD, Kyrie, Ben Simmons, Royce O'Neal, Seth Curry or something, right? I think that would have made a lot of sense. But personally, I don't quite see it. Especially with them now, Kevin Durant's requesting a trade. I'm assuming that means you're getting rid of Kyrie too. So Ben Simmons is by himself. I mean, Royce O'Neal in theory fits next to Ben Simmons, so I like that fit a little bit, right? The next thing that happened is the Utah Jazz waived Juancho Hernangomez, or better known to most people as Bo Cruz. And they actually used a picture of him in the movie as his picture for being waived or whatever. I thought was hilarious. Jokic got his contract extension. He got a Supermax, so for him, it is 5 years, $264 million. Obviously, to stay with Denver, that's why he got that deal. Not surprised. Obviously, you have the 2-time MVP. You lock him down. Still pretty young. That one really was no hesitation to me, right? Next one was Devin Booker, 4 years, $214 million. I believe he still already got 1 year on his deal. That's why it's 4 and not 5. Because I think Jokic was scheduled to become a free agent next year. So his got added on top of that. Booker's got added on top of his because I think he's through 2024. So his extension got kicked onto that. The next one that got added was Malik Monk. And initially they didn't have the numbers. And then that typically is what will happen is Woj or Shams tweets out, just because they want to be first, because that's just what this business is about. Hey, this person's signing here. And then you wait about 5-10 minutes, and then they'll be like, oh, it's for this number. So thankfully, it's kind of why I waited till about now to do this. Just because obviously, right when free agency hits, it's like just a straight buzzsaw of notifications and stuff, so trying to piece everything together. But Malik Monk is going to the Kings on a 2-year, $19 million deal. I find this extremely hilarious because in an interview or a quote that he got like a week ago, he was basically saying he was willing to take less to stay with the Lakers because he wanted to win. Instead, he is now going to Sacramento. I'm kind of wondering if this is why they gave up on Dante DiVincenzo. I still like Dante DiVincenzo more than I like Malik Monk now. I liked Malik Monk more as a prospect. Mainly because he was a Kentucky guy and he had a really good March Madness. But that's just my bias, right? DeAndre Jordan is going to the Nuggets. The number hasn't been announced. I'm assuming vet minimum. I'm also assuming this means DeMarcus Cousins isn't coming back. Why? I don't know, because personally in that system, I like DeMarcus Cousins more than I like DeAndre Jordan. A, DeAndre Jordan's been terrible, right? Let's start there. B, while you're not going to be able to replicate Jokic 1-for-1, DeMarcus Cousins has a more similar play style to Jokic than DeAndre Jordan. He's a decent high IQ guy, passes well, can shoot, spreads the floor, plays defense. And I think that he really looked well in that system last year. So personally, if it was me, I would have put DeMarcus Cousins in the DeAndre Jordan spot. But hey, DeAndre Jordan seems to get paid to play even though he hasn't been good for 4 years. Next, we have Isaiah Hartenstein, who I'm actually really pissed off about. Thought he was going to be a Bull. He is not a Bull. He's actually going to New York for 2 years, $16 million. This kind of explains more of why they freed up the cap space of Nerlens Noel and not just Alec Burks. Because basically Isaiah Hartenstein and Nerlens Noel make almost the exact same amount of money. So I do think that is an upgrade. I don't love going off advanced stats. That seems to be most people's projection for him. Everyone's like, oh, his advanced stats are great. This, that, and the third. Let's see. Let's see if when he gets those minutes, what happens, right? Next, we have Victor Oladipo. Went back to the Heat. 1 year, $11 million. More than I thought he would get. Kind of thought he would go to another competing team. I liked him in Denver. Liked him possibly in Milwaukee. I just didn't know how the money would work. even Lakers on like the vet minute or something like that. PJ Tucker, this one's been talked about for about 3 days. He's going to the 76ers, 3 years, $33.2 million. I believe that is their taxpayer mid-level. And that was why, so Harden still hasn't agreed to his extension. I guess they are meeting over the 4th of July weekend to discuss that with him to make sure all the numbers work and he can get whatever and then he can get it on the back end. But I was really hoping PJ Tucker to the Bulls. The tweet, I believe, came out yesterday that we were in like top 4 or 5 of PJ Tucker destinations, and he was exactly who I wanted to play that backup role and mentor Patrick Williams, but it doesn't look like that's happening. Bobby Portis opted out. He is staying in Milwaukee for 4 years, 49. Makes sense. It seems like Bobby Portis has always been one to prioritize security, with him kind of going from the Bulls and just kind of rotating around a couple of places. Now that he's been in Milwaukee, he's been willing to take less than I think what his market value is, just to ensure he's on like a 2 to 3 year deal with Milwaukee. So that should put him through most of his, I would say probably most of his prime. And then he'll probably get vet min deals after that. Daniel House is going to the Sixers. Did not see a value on that. I'm assuming either a chunk of the mid-level or he's just going for the vet minimum. I like that for him. At times he was Utah's best defender minus Royce O'Neal as far as the perimeter goes. So I definitely like that for 76ers. They're building up that bench. And he can kind of slide into that backup 3 role. Really like him for the 76ers. Wesley Matthews, again, I'm assuming this is a vet min deal. Returning back to Milwaukee. He was really valuable for them. Definitely could play that 2 guard well. I like him out there with Middleton and Giannis and Drew. I think it just turns into a really good defensive core. When he's not asked to guard the best guy every night, he's kind of that 3rd, 4th option on defense. I really like that for him. Javon Carter is also returning to the Bucks on a 2-year deal. Shams did not have the money for it. Probably close to a minimum, something like that. I liked him a lot when he played. I did think he was better than George Hill. So kind of interesting to see what his rotation minutes look like this coming year. Devon Reed is going to Denver. Again, no price put on it. I'm assuming vet minimum. I think Denver's just trying to build up that bench. Jeff Green wasn't what they thought he would be when he came over. So I think they're just trying to kind of slowly build up that bench. Miami makes another move. They're bringing back Dwayne Dedmon. Dwayne Dedmon's now getting a 2-year, $9 million. He had his moments. He looked good. I feel like, what's his name? Omer Yurchison played really well. I like what Dedmon, in theory, gives you as a backup big, right? He still gives you spacing. He gives you some defense. So I think he still fits decently well in their system. Jayshawn Tate got an extension. He originally had a team option for, I think it was like 1.8. And then Houston randomly declined that yesterday, which was really weird. And then ended up giving him an extension today for 3 years, 22.1. Don't necessarily know why they were in a rush to extend him. I think you still could have gotten this deal out of him next year and kind of had more of a sense of direction of where your team's going. And plus the fact you already have 7 draft picks from the last 2 years on this roster. I'm assuming maybe he plays for a year or 2 and then towards the end of that contract they move him because I don't think they'll be competing at that time. Lonnie Walker is going to the Lakers for 1 year, $6.5 million. I'm assuming, because the weird thing was that came out yesterday is that San Antonio just declined his restricted rights. They gave up on his bird rights, so he was unrestricted free agent. Did not expect that. I kind of understand because of the logjam with the guys you drafted and stuff, but just to lose him for nothing was a really weird move on, at least on my side. Now, former Bull Troy Brown Jr. I know everybody's waiting for that one, right? So he is going to the Lakers also on a minimum. I like that Varela. Ooh, smoker's cough, guys. But he's going to the Lakers on a minimum. I like that for their bench. They're starting to build a little bit more of a bench. Obviously, still have a lot of pieces that need filled in, and a lot of guys that are leaving. They'll have to figure out. But I think he's solid as long as you don't expect too much from him, right? If you keep him in the role he's supposed to be in, he's a decent scorer, decent wing. This one was kind of a surprise to me. JaVale McGee is going to Dallas. 3 years, $20.1 million. So that essentially solidifies their bigs, right? You've got Dwight Powell. You've got Maxi Kleber, Christian Wood, JaVale McGee. You're good, right? I'm assuming this means Maxi Kleber is going to play more 4, if I'm understanding this correctly, because Dwight Powell plays your starting center. JaVale McGee plays your backup. Obviously, you can plug and play and move people around, but I think that'll be the bulk of it for the regular season. An interesting one that I did not expect to hear this early. We got Kevin Knox is going to Detroit. 2 years, $6 million. Decent deal. I mean, they need wings. They need guys added. I think that, give them some runs, see what happens. You never know. Hamidou Diallo, I mean, wasn't as bad as Kevin Knox has been, but he got a little bit of a chance to shine there in Detroit. I think Kevin Knox can get that same opportunity. Gallo, no surprise, got waived by San Antonio. Has not officially gotten a home put in yet. Haven't heard any offers. He will probably get some sort of attention from, I'd like to see him maybe go back to Denver. Probably would be the main spot. Maybe take a year and go to Golden State in like the Otto Porter role. Another surprising one that I didn't see in the chaos of things, but as I was going back to look at this before I started stream, Jaren Jackson Jr. had surgery on his foot. He is going to be out 4 to 6 months. So that puts him at a timetable from like October to December. So he might not necessarily be there when the season starts, but he should be there sometime October to December. And that also means probably not going to be in any sort of Kevin Durant trade. I don't know if they would want that with him plus Ben Simmons. Another one that just got announced, free agent DeLon Wright has agreed to a 2-year, $16 million deal with the Wizards. So it sounds like Washington is trying to shore up their point guard situation now that they've traded for Monte Morris. And then DeLon Wright, I'm assuming DeLon Wright's probably starting to at least start the year. And then I think Monte Morris probably by the end of the year will have that spot. Just because I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of DeLon Wright as your primary ball handler and your starting point guard. I am more of a believer in Monte Morris. Next, after that, so most of that was Shams, and then I switched over to Woj. Bradley Beal signed his 5-year, $251 million max extension. From what I had heard from their GM, I believe it was on Ryan Russillo's podcast, that was basically a done deal like a week and a half ago. Just talking about how he believed in Bradley and everything pointed to they were keeping him. I'm assuming Bradley took this mainly because of the money. Obviously, in this league, proven by Kevin Durant requesting a trade, doesn't matter how many years you have left, you can still request that trade. So I think he gives it a year or two, realizes he still can't win in Washington, and then requests a trade somewhere else. Anthony Simons got his 4-year, $100 million extension from the Blazers. That's pretty good value. I think I had him at about 16 to 18 million. So it's going a little bit above. That's actually not terrible. It does beg the question, though, are you going to have a guy that makes $20 million a year as your sixth man? Is he going to start? I don't love that group defensively if he starts, because then you're looking at Dame and Anthony Simons. That's a lot of guys to pick on. Nurk, if he comes back, isn't necessarily a top-tier center defensively. I think you're just kind of running it back to the CJ model, but he's just a little bit cheaper than CJ was. Tyus Jones is staying in Memphis. He got 2 years, $30 million. I like that for them. They did get rid of Melton to Philly. So I think he was kind of a necessity at this point just because that backup point guard situation, I didn't necessarily trust it, even with bringing in the rookie Kennedy Chandler. Just didn't think that he would be able to provide that calming presence on that bench. And it also gives Kennedy Chandler 2 years to kind of develop under him. And then after that, you can set him loose and see what happens. Amir Coffey is going to the Clippers. I believe he was already a Clipper. 3 years, $11 million, just kind of a young guy, promise guy to put on the end of your bench. So I feel like that just makes the most sense. Sorry, guys. Man, cough from hell. All right. Damian Jones is going to the Lakers on a 2-way deal. Interesting center that I think they'll probably bring up a lot. Give him a chance to run. He's still pretty young. Obviously not a crazy center or anything like that, but I think it's an interesting move. The Raptors re-signed Chris Boucher, 3 years, $35.25 million. Again, another guy I was kind of hoping that maybe saw a chance back up Chicago. You got to figure for a little over $10 million a year, I definitely would have loved to have him as a backup. Still interesting that they really haven't gone after a big center. So we'll see where that goes. That would have been another interesting place for JaVale McGee, I think. Last couple here. So, Lou Dort got an extension, guys. I had to take a drink for that one. It was necessary. He's going back to OKC. Unlike Jae'Sean Tate, he's not getting a 3-year deal. He's getting a 5-year deal. $87.5 million for Lu Dort. So I don't know. So here's what I'm thinking, right? You're a little over like 15 a year, right? Which is about the price range I wanted for Lu Dort. Don't get me wrong. But 5 years? I'm curious as to why Lu Dort agreed to 5 years, right? He's still relatively young. I think he's like 23, 24. I don't understand how you're willing to go till like your 28-year-old season only making 15, right? I feel like that's going to be a gross underpay for what he does. 3-and-D specialist is really important in this league. Price for that is going up. I just don't understand why you would commit to a 5-year deal. However, for OKC, good for them. You know, keep him for a couple of years. If some of the draft picks don't work out, boom, he's still there as your starting 3. Still probably the smallest dude on the court for you. Can't necessarily switch great onto bigger wings. So I do think at some point you're going to have to upgrade from him if you want to compete. But I mean, on that contract, he's going to be reasonably priced. I think it'll be easy trade regardless. Nicholas Batum. Going back to the Clippers, not surprised there. Did not have a exact contract at the time. I'm assuming like a 2 for 11, maybe something like that. Pretty standard as far as Nick Batum goes. Might get paid a little more. An interesting one that came out of left field. Patty Mills. I can't English, guys. Is going back to the Brooklyn Nets for 2 years, $14.5 million. I was kind of thinking for a dark horse that he might go back to San Antonio. Just to kind of mentor those guys, be with Pop for a last year, last ride. But he's decided to stay in Brooklyn. Brooklyn's put together a lot of interesting vets. I don't know if it's to try and talk Kevin Durant out of requesting a trade. Because Kevin Durant didn't go to the GM, he went straight to the owner. But I mean, they're trying to put some vets. I don't see it. I mean, once the guy requests a trade, I just don't see how he comes back into that locker room. Another guy for the Nets that got re-signed, Nick Claxton, is on a 2-year, $20 million deal. I think for him being a backup center, seems like that's about the backup center market. Makes a lot of sense. And he's only on a 2-year deal. Still pretty young. Could still go out there and try and get a better offer in 2 years. Gary Harris. The last place I expected him to go, he stays with Orlando. 2 years, $26 million. I just don't understand how this man gets like so much money constantly. I mean, good 3-and-D guy, but like $13 million a year for Orlando just baffles me. And then the final official offer we have, Kyle Anderson. This was actually right before I started streaming, like as I was pulling up stream. He is going to Minnesota for 2 years, $18 million. I think he's a solid piece, obviously. Veteran piece. Playoff experience. Can really help those guys. Be a voice along with Patrick Beverley. Maybe more of a calm to the Patrick Beverley show. He just doesn't necessarily shoot the ball well. It's the thing that I'm worried about. You're essentially getting older. I don't want to make the exact comparison, but older Jared Vanderbilt. But not quite Jared Vanderbilt, if that makes sense, right? He will stand out there and shoot. It just takes a million years, but he's not a net positive shooter. He's still that drive, inside presence, good defensively as a forward, though. I am still curious what they're going to do as far as center goes. But that is an interesting offer, I thought, at least to bring up, that he is going to Minnesota. He's not staying in Memphis, which I think we all kind of knew was happening. Now, the Jalen Brunson thing is interesting. Because there's 2 different reports, right? Shams, about 3 hours ago, said the Knicks offered 4 years, $110 million, right? That Dallas didn't even get a chance to offer, okay? That's what Shams said about 3-4 hours ago. Woj, an hour ago, said that Dallas offered 5 years, $106 million plus, and he was on his way to New York with that offer. So, I guess maybe it's conflicting reports. Maybe he's hearing it from one camp and not the other. Because the fact that both of them tweeted two separate things that never got deleted is interesting to me. So I guess his decision will probably be tomorrow. If not tomorrow, I would assume Monday. Guys, we still need to hear. One guy I'm concerned I haven't heard yet, Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine, according to multiple reports that we had been hearing for the last week, his contract with Chicago was basically a done deal, right? Teams were done trying to negotiate, done deal. Does this mean he's in the Kevin Durant trade? I highly doubt it, because why would he want to go to that situation in Brooklyn, right? But also the fact we haven't heard it, a little weird. James Harden, obviously I already mentioned, his is going to be done over the weekend. Bradley Beals is done. A lot of the big name guys are pretty much done at this point, right? We are, so another name we're still waiting on, DeAndre Ayton. I didn't think his would be done today, because if they're wanting a sign and trade, you can't have somebody officially put in an offer, because once that happens, you cannot sign and trade him. Another one that we haven't heard is Miles Bridges. Miles Bridges has alleged domestic things going on that I guess happened the other day, according to TMZ. The Hornets put out a statement that they're still investigating, so I would assume his offer probably comes later, and it's probably not going to be a max, I'm going to be honest, because Detroit's cap space is more or less caught up. San Antonio's in a big rebuild. I just don't see anything happening there, right? RJ Barrett's contract extension hasn't been announced yet either. That was rumored, I believe, yesterday, is that his contract extension was going to kick in for his rookie scale contract. I'm trying to think of anybody else that hasn't been announced yet. Some guys I would like to see traded. I guess let's go there. If you're San Antonio, blow it all the way up. So that means I think you trade Jakob Poeltl. Jakob Poeltl isn't expiring. And I think he's a starting caliber center, right? I don't love the idea of trading him to Phoenix, especially if you're DeAndre Ayton, because you're going to a team that literally has no point guard. Other than like Josh Primo and I think Trey Jones is on that roster. Doug McDermott out of San Antonio. Again, you're a rebuilding team. What do you need Doug McDermott for? Think a contender could really use him. Solid shooter. Has a ways to go defensively. We'll put it that way. Haven't heard anything about Otto Porter. Haven't heard anything about Gary Payton II. Haven't heard anything about Kevin Looney. All the Golden State guys seem to be unannounced. Andre Iguodala, I don't think has made a decision on whether he's retiring or not. I'm assuming his deal, if anything, will come in like a couple of weeks. I'm just trying to check. Okay. Just trying to make sure that, nothing crazy's happened. Trying to think of who else I'd like to see traded. I think Vooch could very well be traded as a Bulls fan. Kobe White, I think, is very much out the door. I think with that Dalen Terry draft pick, I think that moves him. From what I've heard, he's more guard/forward. Don't know with his frame if he'll go to the forward quite yet. I think he'll be more guard. Unless they're keeping Kobe White around to make sure Lonzo Ball comes back all the way healthy. That was the one thought process I've had recently as to why he's not gone yet. Because Lonzo Ball, we still haven't heard much. Because if Lonzo's out, that puts Ayo at your starting point guard. That means Caruso and Kobe White come off your bench. OG Anunoby, we still haven't heard anything about his trade rumors. That was kind of a weird thing that just started to happen and then died. The Knicks, at one point I heard, were rumored to trade Julius Randle. Hasn't happened yet. Obviously Kyrie, I'm assuming if Durant's gone, Kyrie's gone. But yeah, like I said, wasn't going to be a very long stream. I just kind of wanted to go through today's update as far as free agents go. And then we'll probably do the same thing tomorrow if there's enough guys. Again, I probably want to get to about the same amount we had today just so I have a little bit more material. Maybe we'll do a prediction if you guys want to see it. I can walk through people's off seasons and kind of see what team, as far as looks at top free agents on their boards. Maybe we can go through NBA Central and get trade rumors. Something like that next stream. But I just wanted to kind of keep it quick. Just kind of stalling just to make sure Woj doesn't tweet anything as I leave. And then, like I said, the 2K video will be out in probably half hour or so. Just because it's a pretty simple one that I had already mentioned earlier in the week. But yeah, tomorrow there will be the 2K content as always, probably on my lunch break. Will be most of that. I'll probably have to break it up into like 3 videos depending on how much content we get, because I'll have the rewards, have the actual cards and packs, different stuff like that. And then if we don't have enough guys tomorrow night, I'll make a list of everybody since this has happened, and we can go, we'll go into like maybe on Sunday or something. I'll do a live stream again and we can go through it. And then also let me know on Twitter or on one of the TikToks if you guys want me to live stream the Domination Grind for the beginning of Season 8 tomorrow. But yeah, that is going to do it for me. I will catch you guys in the next one. Appreciate everybody coming through. Peace.